was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
That's horrific. Some people did something. Yes, Mr. Speaker. Some people did do something. Some people committed evil acts of terrorism and killed nearly 3,000 Americans. And in response, some thousands of our fellow citizens, myself included, enlisted in our armed forces to defend the gentlelady's right to make her prejudiced remarks. Many went off to combat and even died to defend that right. But they did not die fighting to have their bravery and love of country undermined by a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Mr. Speaker, I have no words to describe just how utterly unacceptable these comments are.
Max Miller just walked into Congress, pulled out Ilhan Omar's own words, and didn't even bother arguing. He just read them out loud. And honestly, that's the political version of bringing receipts to a debate. And suddenly, everyone in the room realizes the receipt has a signature on it. No spin, no exaggeration, just her own statements front and center. And for a moment, you could almost feel it. Things got real quiet. Now, here's the bigger question. What happens when the issue isn't what your opponents say about you, but what you've already said yourself?
Mr. Speaker, the House Committee on Foreign Affairs has broad jurisdiction over national security and foreign policy, peacekeeping and peace enforcement, international law, and the promotion of democracy, and many other critical issues that require its members to be both objective and credible. Members of the Committee on Foreign Affairs represent the United States abroad and are regarded as credible emissaries of American foreign policy. Their words have significant weight in guiding our relations with other countries and are relied upon by world leaders. Most importantly, our allies such as Israel, the forever home of the Jewish people. But what happens when a committee member is no longer viewed as a credible emissary of our foreign policy? What if a member is barred from visiting one of our allies because of their prejudiced comments? How can members who are unable to engage with our allies in a constructive manner be considered credible members of the committee? Well, the gentlelady's discriminatory comments disqualified her from traveling to Israel in 2019. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, would not allow Representative Omar to enter, saying, "We respect all political parties in the United States equally. However, we will also respect ourselves. Whoever comes to impose boycotts on us and to deny the legitimacy of the State of Israel, we will not allow them entry." Yes, the gentlelady disqualified herself from entry into one of the most important countries allied with the United States. Over the past 75 years, Israel has been a steadfast ally of the United States. Israel has stood by us through the volatility in the Middle East, and this alliance has been critical to our own national security. How can someone not welcomed by one of our most important allies serve as an emissary of American foreign policy on the Foreign Affairs Committee? And given her biased comments against Israel and against the Jewish people, how can she serve as an objective decision-maker on the committee? Let's take a look at some of the gentlelady's comments. In February of 2019, barely more than a month after becoming a member of this body, Representative Omar suggested that the Jewish people and the American Israel Public Affairs Committee were buying political support, writing on Twitter, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby," clearly amplifying an anti-Semitic stereotype about the Jewish people and money. In response, congressional Democratic leadership, her own party, immediately released a statement by saying, "Anti-Semitism must be called out, confronted, and condemned wherever it is encountered without exception." Not long after Representative Omar trivialized the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, by describing that day of infamy as, "Some people did something."
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
That's horrific. Some people did something. Yes, Mr. Speaker, some people did do something. Some people committed evil acts of terrorism and killed nearly 3,000 Americans. And in response, some thousands of our fellow citizens, myself included, enlisted in our armed forces to defend the gentlelady's right to make her prejudiced remarks. Many went off to combat and even died to defend that right. But they did not die fighting to have their bravery and love of country undermined by a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Mr. Speaker, I have no words to describe just how utterly unacceptable these comments are. But that's not all. In 2021, the gentlelady referred to Israel, which has the absolute right to defend itself against terrorism and attacks on its very existence, as an apartheid state. She even equated the United States and Israel, countries that have stood as beacons of democracy, to the Taliban and Hamas, organizations that impose terror on their regions in the world. Once again, even her Democrat colleagues swiftly condemned her comment. 12 Democrat members of this body released a statement which noted, equating the United States and Israel to Hamas and the Taliban is as offensive as it is misguided, ignoring the differences between democracies governed by the rule of law and contemptible organizations that engage in terrorism. At best discredits one intended argument and at worst reflects deep-seated prejudice from her own party. Some have decried this effort as a political game. Mr. Speaker, I assure you this is no political game. This resolution is not about engaging in a tit-for-tat with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. This is about keeping someone with a long record of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel bias off the Foreign Affairs Committee, which needs objective emissaries for our foreign policy. Even the Democrat former chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Eliot Engel, said that Representative Omar's anti-Semitic comments have no place in the Foreign Affairs Committee or the House of Representatives. That was in addition to the previously mentioned joint statement from 12 of the gentlelady's Democrat colleagues. The facts are clear. Representative Omar has espoused anti-Semitic and anti-Israel rhetoric time and again. She cannot be an objective contributor to the work of the committee, and she has brought dishonor to the House of Representatives. This body, this committee, which is viewed by nations around the world as speaking for Congress on matters of international importance and national security, should not have a seat for a member who would bring such dishonor to that committee. I encourage all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this resolution, to say with one voice that the United States House of Representatives does not condone hate, and to reaffirm we will always condemn anti-Semitism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
All right, let's walk through what's actually going on here, because beneath the headlines, this is pretty straightforward. The House Foreign Affairs Committee isn't just symbolic. It deals with serious matters: national security, diplomacy, global alliances. So the people on that committee, they're not just politicking, they're representing America to the world. Now, the argument being made in this speech is simple but important. If a member is seen as biased, or worse, not credible by key allies, can they still effectively do that job? And this is where Ilhan Omar comes into focus. Back in 2019, Israel, one of America's closest allies, denied her entry. Now, whether you agree with that decision or not, it raises a real question. Wait, how do you conduct diplomacy if you can't even get in the room? That's not ideological, that's practical. And that's why this conversation matters. It's not just about politics, it's about effectiveness. Now, let's get into the substance, because this is where things start to connect. First, the credibility issue. The speech argues that members of this committee must be objective and trusted. And honestly, that makes sense. If you're representing the U.S., your words don't just stay in Washington, they echo globally. This is where Max Miller's approach hits differently. He's not interpreting anything. He's just reading what was already said. And some of those statements, especially the ones implying financial influence in U.S. support for Israel, were widely criticized, not just by opponents, but by members of her own party. That part matters. Because when criticism crosses party lines, it usually means something deeper is going on. Fourth, the September 11th comment. The phrase, "some people did something," that one sparked strong reactions. And look, intent can always be debated, but public officials don't get the luxury of being unclear on major national moments. Words carry weight, especially those words. Fifth, The comparisons involving Israel, the US, and groups like Hamas or the Taliban. Even allies pushed back on that, hard. Because when you draw comparisons like that, people are going to take them seriously, even if you didn't mean them that way. Now let's ground this in principle. Free speech? Absolutely protected, no question. But here's the part people sometimes skip. Holding office isn't just about what you can say, it's about what you should say, given the responsibility you carry. Those are two different standards. If you're following this breakdown, go ahead and hit subscribe, because this channel is about cutting through noise and focusing on what actually matters. Let's be clear for a second. This is not about silencing anyone, not even close. This is about accountability. You can defend someone's right to speak and still question whether they should be in a position that requires trust, precision, and diplomatic credibility. That's not unfair. That's the job. Because representing the United States, especially on foreign policy, isn't just about having a voice. It's about knowing how that voice lands around the world. At the end of the day, this whole situation comes down to one simple truth. If your strongest defense is explaining what you really meant after someone reads exactly what you said, yeah, that's a tough place to argue from. Stay sharp.